ready to go.
Would you start it?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jai Negri, and I'm going to talk about non-monogamy in queer communities. And I'm hoping to have a dialogue with you. So please send me questions or ideas throughout the conversation. So there are a lot of kinds of intimacy in our world. Like most of us have many relationships that we're juggling at one time and sharing different kinds of dynamics depending on the circumstances or depending on the intention of the relationship. So there are many ways to be intimate: intellectual, physical, sexual, spiritual, emotional, professional. And then sometimes there's unique intimate relationships like a surrogacy or people who engage with their higher power in that fashion. Patrons and artists, and endlessly more relationships that aren't necessarily the scripted ones we inherit when we think about romantic relationships. So there's a lot of different ways to have that intimacy that isn't just romantic. So all relationships can encompass many consensual relational styles that share many kinds of intimacy. And then here we have just a sampling of relationship styles. So as you can see, many of us might have a selection of one or two on this list. Polyamory being one. Relationship anarchy. Blended co-parenting families.
Could you speak
louder? Yeah, I'll speak louder. It's okay, I'll try to speak louder. Some of these maybe we don't even know what they are, like metamors. People think, what is that one? And that is if a person is in a polyamorous relationship or non-monogamous relationship and their partners, other partners would be their metamors. So there's a relationship there as well. Monogamish, I heard recently, is a fun term. I've heard it described as couples who primarily are monogamous but have permission or agreement around engaging in sexual activities outside of the relationship, and that not counting as any sort of cheating or any sort of like a negative thing, but as an agreed upon. Ambiguous sweeties is one of my favorites because it's cute. And nesting partners are people who have chosen to share a home together, but may or may not have other intimacy with each other. So some of these options combine the inherited scripts for relating. So when we think about the scripts we inherit from our culture, I know for me, I inherited a script called heteronormative monogamous marriage. So I have images that come to my mind when I hear those terms of family members or my grandparents who, as far as I know of, had that style of relationship. And it, so I can look to those relationships for ideas or advice if I was not sure how to go about my own relationship and I was following that same inherited script. Also, even thinking outside of like romantic relationships, I think about my relationship to, say, my mail carrier. Like they bring me the mail every day and that's their role, and I do my role, I take the mail out, right? But if I wanted that relationship to go off script, then I might want to engage with them in a conversation about like, hey, I'd like to give you coffee once a week because I love that you bring me the mail and it makes me really happy, so I want to do the same for you. And so anytime we want to go off script from what we've inherited, it takes a lot more conversations and a lot more intentionality behind it than like, you know your role, I know mine, let's both go down this path together. When even then, sometimes, I think I know what your role is, you think you know mine, but as we do it, we're discovering there's bumps in the road, even no matter what style of relationship. While all people can enjoy benefits of various relationship styles, having expanded close relationship options is especially critical for the queer and trans community, as many are isolated from their family of origin. So as you, I'm sure, can imagine, if you find yourself isolated from your family of origin, the value you place on other connections is going to be at a heightened level. You're going to see those people as maybe a chosen family or a family you've discovered out of seeking connections in your community as you try to figure out how to navigate the world without your family of origin as a support for that. So it wouldn't surprise me to hear someone in the LGBT community share that they are interested in considering more connections, whether it be romantic relationships or more of the chosen family, like who are we going to spend Thanksgiving with this year? Is it our family of origin? Is it our significant other? Is it more than one significant other? Is it people we call our nieces and sisters and cousins who we actually have no blood relationship with, but that's our new chosen family? Are there any questions so far? Good. So, systemic impact of discrimination by communities and families also lends to higher levels of depression and hopelessness in the queer and trans community. So this is also not news to those communities, maybe to those outside the community it might be. But having those additional layers of discrimination add to the need to reach out. So before we started the lecture, we were all talking about being introverts. And so we may not all feel a strong need to have a big circle of people in our world, but the more we struggle with things like depression and hopelessness, the more we need to make sure we're reaching out and having several people as community to make sure we're getting through that. Queer and trans community members are often facing challenges that encompass their other identities and social roles as they intersect with the queer or trans identity. So here we're talking about perhaps their race or class or family structure. Perhaps they're a parent or have family out of the country that they're still connecting with. And all of that just adds more layers of complexity. So we're all very complex beings, very layered. So none of us are just one identity. And figuring out how to navigate that within all of these other pieces can be additionally challenging. So having those deeper support structures is critical for the survival of our queer and trans community, regardless of whether or not that includes non-monogamous options for intimacy. So this is not, no matter what kind of relationships you engage in, connection matters. And for our trans women of color, it is a matter of life and death for many of them. To have somewhere to go that isn't, for some of them, to have community that supports them so that they're not left to be targeted. So the more community somebody has, the more layers of protection around them they have, whether it be the family of origin or those tighter communities that you engage with. And it's critical. So here we have time for more questions. Some of the terms might be a little complicated. There's like-minded community in various places. Facebook certainly has several communities of different kinds. So you can search for non-monogamy or polyamory, or I think there's relationship anarchy, or there's some that are like monogamous, polyamorous couple relationship support. So there's a lot you can find thanks to the internet and Facebook. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Come to mind. How about you?
Yeah. So I have a question. So when people are in like multiple relationships, I'm not sure if you know how to answer this, but how do you deal with jealousy if you're in multiple relationships, or you know, if you feel like your partner's like going off with someone too much, or you know, like how do you deal with that, I guess?
Yeah. Jealousy is a really common question people have about non-monogamy. I've heard several ways people can answer that. For some people, they try to reframe it in their mind. So they think about the fact that the other person's not their property. They're an independent individual who has things that make them happy that aren't all going to be you, and nor should it be. Like, we all want to have several things that make us happy, right? Like, if we have one best friend, it's okay to have other friends. And it's okay, if you have more than one child, to love those other children. And so sometimes it's just the reframing of this person has a right to do these things, and remembering that it's not inherently a threat to the things that you value and want from your relationship with that individual, because you can ask for what you want and you can communicate about that. So if they're spending more time with someone, you would want to ask yourself, is it up to me to decide who they spend this time with? No, it isn't. However, when I notice them spending so much time with that person, it reminds me that my needs aren't quite being met in a way that I was hoping for from my relationship with that person. So instead of communicating like, I don't want you going with that person anymore, we would want to communicate our own needs. Like, I'm interested in more dates with you. How can we negotiate that so that we both feel satisfied with our relationship? And then another interesting idea is the idea of conversion, which is actually finding in yourself joy and happiness for your partner's joy and happiness. And to practice that, you would start with things that aren't the most threatening, right? Like, you'd start by thinking of the things that, you know, okay, they like to play racquetball, or they're really into the knitting or something that I personally have no interest in. But how can I find what about that makes them happy? And try to find my own joy in that. Like, boy, I've noticed every time they come back from that knitting club, they just have a glow about them and they seem calmer and more relaxed, and I bet they get a lot out of that. And then I get along with them better because they're more relaxed and in a good mood. So whatever your person is out doing in the world, again, bringing it back to your relationship with them, what's coming back to me? Are they coming home ignoring me? Well, then if I don't want to be ignored, we're going to discuss that. And it's not about where you just came from. It's about what my needs are and what your needs are and what we said we were going to provide each other or not. So ultimately, communication in all relationships, right? Like, even if your partner is monogamous with you, if they really like to go golfing every Saturday morning, and now you've both retired together and you're older and you're ready to take on some adventures, and they're like, now I'm going to golf every day. You might run into a similar sense of, like, jealousy, like, but now I'm jealous of the golf course. Like, I wanted that time. I don't know why I felt entitled to it. I guess I didn't discuss it with you, but now let's discuss it, because I'm noticing that there's something that I would hoped for that's not happening. And then a couple of other challenges of polyamory that I've heard about, or even non-monogamy in general, really come down to that piece of time. So scheduling and people keeping their word about their scheduling and honoring those commitments they've made, and making sure to notify the other person if they're not going to keep those commitments, or if they've discovered they didn't, to come back and say, hey, I didn't keep this commitment. Here's what I'm committed to going forward. And again, these things apply really to all relationships, right? Like, your mom always calls and wants to get together, and you're like, well, I don't want to see her every day or every week. Like, what feels right to me? What feels right to her? How can we come up with an amount of time as two adults that seeing mom is the right schedule, you know? Or I used to visit my grandmother in the nursing home, and we would go every Sunday, and that felt right. It was like, well, this is how often we're going to go see this family member and engage in the relationship that we have with them, or call, you know. But ultimately, it comes down to all of that. Like, it's scheduling, time, and resources, including your emotional labor. I mean, maybe you decide to have a relationship only with yourself. Like, this is how I'm going to conduct my life right now. I'm going to, in my case, I'm going to graduate school and have 3 children. And it's like, boy, I don't really have room for much else. And I think the third piece is going to have to be my self-care. Like, so if I have friends that want to come with to the gym, I would love that. But if they don't, that's where I'm spending my time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for answering.
I have a question. So we are both therapists, and so we work with folks all the time who identify as non-monogamous. And one thing that I try to do is know, with any community member I'm working with, what are the strengths of that community? Have you experienced in the non-monogamous community any particular strengths, like around communication?
Yeah, there's a lot of strengths. In the non-monogamous community, one of the biggest things I think of just hearing you ask that question is times of crisis and difficulty are where it really kicks in, that family community setting, when you go, to the hospital to see your partner and their other partner comes, the two of you get to lean on each other. The two of you get to say, why don't you spend a few hours with this person while I go take care of my children, and then I'm going to come back. We don't want to leave them alone. We're concerned about them being in the hospital without support. But so it creates just more people to provide that support. Sometimes childcare also will be like, well, there are children in each of these pieces, but instead of hiring out a babysitter, how about I'll take all the kids tonight, and you guys go have a date, and then on a different night, you'll take all the kids, and I'll go out on a date. So it's just, again, more larger community sharing and like leaning into those other community members as more of a family or more of a strength or more of someone to have a support and less of a adversary. Yeah.
I have another question.
Yay.
So if I feel like queer and trans people often already feel a lot of like stigma because of their identities, and if they're opening up their relationships or are in non-monogamous relationships, they kind of receive a lot of backlash from people like outsiders basically. Do you have any advice for dealing with that, or just maybe even in general, like how to deal with people who don't approve of your relationship, or like maybe you're really close to them and they're just like, I don't get this? So any advice for that?
I think I heard multiple pieces there, so
Yeah.
let's see if I can remember what they all are. Certainly, the queer and trans community is already heavily judged. And if you add polyamory onto that, there's now more layers that are also not protected. So when it comes to going to court or family matters, things can get really messy because polyamory is not protected at all, right? So how to deal with those extended family members, or is it like maybe close friends you said who don't understand what you're doing?
Yeah.
I know there's a really good website called More Than Two that answers many, many, many questions about polyamory and helps people reframe their understanding of it. And similarly, like what we talked about before, like, well, I don't understand the knitting thing, but I don't have to understand it. I don't have to want to do it myself to understand it. And really, again, the communication is the key. So maybe I would ask my friend, like, what do you love about it? Help me understand so that I can support you. Or do you even need me to support you? Or is this something you're just doing on your own? And you described it as couples who are already a couple who have decided to open their partnership into a multi-ship of some sort.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. So there's individual poly people, there's configurations and constellations of various kinds. And when it comes to even the identity of polyamory or non-monogamy, for some people I've heard them say it's a lifestyle choice and change that they're making with a partner. And other people say, this is my identity, this is how I've always been, I can't imagine it any other way, and I don't understand how people can do monogamy. Like, they just feel wired that way. So there's going to be different challenges for each. But at the end of the day, like, the people we love and care about matter to us, and if the other people in our lives also care about us, then we just need to talk about it and not be afraid to talk about it.
Thank you.
So I have a question. What advice would you give to having some of these conversations and opening up discussions that may be really challenging and very personal, very emotionally, very challenging?
Yeah. So opening up these conversations, advice I would give. I mean, it's really hard to give advice without knowing context for me. I think if there's a lot of trepidation about how it's going to go, and you want to give that other person an opportunity to also have it go well on their side, because maybe they would want it to go well, but they wouldn't know what to say. So the first thing they blurt out might not be very polite, but sending them an email that's like, here's what's going on with me, and here's websites you can look at to learn about this, so that you hand over some education right along with it, so that they're not feeling quite as blindsided. They can process their own emotions in their own space without you there judging them, because these things could go both ways. And for some people, it's going to feel like a confrontation to their own lifestyle choice. Just like when we were looking at same-sex marriage options, people feel confronted by that. Like, what does this mean about me and my marriage and my choice? Are you saying it's bad and wrong? So being sure to like validate their choice too. Like, hey, I see that you are a consenting adult, married to another consenting adult, and I support and approve of that. I love weddings, you know, and I fully support consenting adults making the choices that are right for them. So being supportive of what that other person is doing and sharing, by the way, this is what I'm considering or doing or have decided or have found in myself. So it's more from a perspective of we all get to choose, and I support your choice, and I'm hoping you can support mine. And then for a lot of people, again, it depends on who it is. So I have some family members that are very religious, so I might take the approach of discussing, like, you have a God that loves all of you, all of us. How is that possible? How do we not get jealous of each other? How do we support each other within that arena? And looking at, well, if God can love everybody, and if I can love all three of my daughters, is it also possible that more than one person could have a relationship, like more than two, I should say, can have a relationship that that is fulfilling and not just going to blow up in their face, which sometimes you hear that too, like, you know, you were a married couple and now you're trying non-monogamy. How is it not just going to blow up in your face? Are you trying to just fix something that's broken? Like, why are you doing this? And of course, it doesn't hurt to ask ourselves, what is our motivation for this? But at the end of the day, you try something out, it might not work. The reason marriages fail is endless, right? There's so many different reasons a marriage might not be successful, or any relationship, whether they have a legally binding contract or not. Relationships fail. They fail all the time. And so to say, like, oh, their relationship failed because they tried polyamory is pretty unlikely the case. Like, more often than not is that there were already underlying concerns or issues that weren't being dealt with. And then polyamory came on the scene as an option for addressing maybe portions of it, but didn't resolve it. And it was heading in that direction. It was, in and of itself, heading in the direction of not staying connected. And polyamory might help expedite that, or it might help lengthen that for some couples. But non-monogamy in and of itself isn't intended, I don't think, to be the band-aid for relationships. I think the best successful relationships I know of are ones where people felt really solid together and made sure that they spent a couple of years in therapy together to address any issues they might have so that they can have polyamory work for them. Yes?
Another question. Any common misconceptions or
Stereotypes of it? Absolutely.
Of non-monogamy
Yes.
that you'd like to address?
Sure. I think the biggest one is this idea that, similar to people who have multiple attractions and not singular attractions, there's this similar sort of, like, oh, you're polyamorous or you're non-monogamous, this must mean that you have unlimited sexual partners all the time, which is, like, never the case for pretty much anybody, right? And from what I've seen, a number of polyamorous couples really struggle to find third or fourth partnerships additions. It's not actually the free-for-all. Maybe comes across as it involves so much work, so much communication, so much time, so much money. Like, really, sometimes it can be very expensive to maintain your relationship and have money to go on dates with new people, both of you. You know, so it's a big undertaking, and the financial piece also adds a classism piece where it's like non-monogamy is accessible to wealthier people who can afford the childcare and the hotel rooms or the whatever it is they decided as the boundaries they want to have. Less accessible with less money. Maybe more flexibility is required, but that's probably the biggest misconception I can think of. Or the idea that this additional relationships can never be serious relationships. So that's a big misconception too. Like some of those secondary relationships or even multiple primary relationships can have equal importance to your life, just as any friendship. You have some friendships you're closer to and some you're not, and really you kind of ebb and flow through all of that. There's no like one connection usually that stays your whole life. It's your one best friend that you get married to, that you start a work partnership with, that you go to every activity with, you know, like usually we don't have it that monogamous of a lifestyle where it's one person forever for all things. And I don't even know if I would say that that would be very healthy, but that's not my call to make for other people.
Have you ever dealt with any or seen any negative reactions towards the idea of like non-monogamy or polyamory, and if you have, like, how have you dealt with them?
Have I seen negative reactions to polyamory? I mean, similar to coming out of the closet with trans or LGBT overall identities, you're going to have surprises of who's accepting and who's not. I've certainly seen things go the opposite as expected with political lines. Like some people will say, well, my family is so conservative and they judge everybody, so there's no way they're not disowning me. And then they find out the news and the family says, well, if my family member's gay, then now it's okay for you. And suddenly that gets encompassed into the family's dynamic, right? Like if it's my family, it's okay. It's kind of the name of the game, right? And then I've met or known people who have very liberal families who are pro all things liberal, but it's the opposite. It's like, yeah, but not in my family. Like, that's fine for those people, and I support them, but that's not coming into my house, you know? So people get surprised by these alternative identity pieces all the time. My favorite, though, is always when people find that their grandparents are so accepting. They think grandparents are old and conservative, they'll never understand anything, and they're like the first people to go, oh, I love you anyway, you know? And that's just so endearing. You all set? Thank you for listening. Yeah. No more questions?
Do you have anything you want to close on?
Nope. Thanks for listening. Feel free to contact me if you have more questions, or post questions on the QueerX website, and I can reach out there and answer them.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.